Testing. Can everyone hear me? How's everyone doing today? Okay, sounds great. So today's live session, we're going to be talking about personal branding versus business branding. I'll give a couple minutes for everything to get started. So, hello everyone. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs Elements live session. Whether you're joining us live or watching the replay, I'm glad you're here for this week's strategy session. My name is Rex. You've met me. I'm one of the admins along with Brian. And today we're going to dive into something that is every entrepreneur or business leaders tackling, one of the big points that they have to tackle and wrestle with, which is personal branding versus business branding. Both are essential tools in your entrepreneurial toolkit. But when do you focus on building yourself as the face of the brand? And when do you put the business front and center? By the time we're done today, you'll have a strong understanding of what these two approaches involve, how they differ, how they overlap, and most importantly, how to leverage both to grow your influence and revenue. Let's get started. Let's define what actually means personal branding versus business branding. Personal branding is how you present yourself to the world professionally. It's the emotional connection people feel to you as an individual based on your skills, personalities, values, and what you stand for. It's not just about being visible, it's about building trust and influence. Think of Oprah. Her career has spanned decades and across industries. Yet the constant has been her commitment to empathy, trust, and authenticity. Another great example is Gary Vee. Love him or hate him, Gary Vee has built his personal brand on hustle, honesty, and a no-nonsense advice approach. Remember, he got started off in wine. His following trusts him because of his consistency. He doesn't go off message, and you can see that there is a continuity to his overall approach in his personal branding. Richard Branson is another great example of this. People recognize him as, the fearless, adventurous type, and this flows into the Virgin brand. So when Virgin Galactic wanted to go into outer space, it fit with the owner's personality. So at that point, you were seeing some synergies. But business branding, on the other hand, is about how people perceive your company itself. And this is independent of the CEO, CFO, or any founder that is influential on them. It's built on a mission. It has vision, values, it has a customer experience, and it's designed for the overall product or service that you're providing. It must be consistent over time and across every touch point. For example, Apple, it's clean, it's minimal, its aesthetic has, that feng shui meets modern, meets innovative culture, which means that when somebody goes into that environment, their expectation is that minimalist idea, and it comes throughout all the products in their brand portfolio. Apple is famous for also making sure that they keep their programs and their identities proprietary. This continues to develop what their brand identity is. Tesla stands out for its disruption and bold and futuristic thinking. The Cybertruck, it was a love it or hate it type relationship. These companies have brand identities that remain powerful even when their leadership changes. I mean, Tesla is one of the ones on the border. Tesla's big push is that it has Elon at its forefront. And Elon does single-handedly more marketing for Tesla than any agency or any sales that it does. But the difference between personal branding and business branding is that personal branding should be built around you, versus business branding should be built around what you want your company to be perceived as. Personal branding is flexible and quick to pivot. Business branding should be able to pivot, but it should be more long-standing and scalable for your company's vision. Personal branding can connect you faster, but carries more personal risk. You're exposing yourself, and maybe more than you want to, into the commercial environment. But at the same time, you are also lending additional credibility or stability to your business branding. Most smart companies and leaders use both. They blend them in a complementary way without putting too much emphasis on one or the other, allowing the flexibility to push off if there's a concern or an issue. Let's talk about some business personal branding failures and successes. Personal branding has created some of the most influential entrepreneurs and thought leaders today. As I said before, Elon Musk is the perfect example of this. His persona of a bold, visionary thinking has fueled the rise of Tesla and SpaceX. Without those, even the funding that would be needed, or the vision, or the belief, it wouldn't be there. Even in the face of skepticism, he has pushed it forward, and they are doing, in all accounts, phenomenally well. Brene Brown turned to turned a research focus on vulnerability into the global leadership platform, showing how authenticity connects with millions, made him a brand leader in that for his personal brand. Simon Sinek leverages a single idea, start with why, into a worldwide leadership movement. Their successes show the power of building a personal brand grounded in purpose, consistency, and audience connection. But personal branding is also incredibly fragile. A single misstep can cause serious damage, not only to yourself, but to your brand. Just ask Kendall Jenner, whose 2017 Pepsi commercial, if everyone remembers, trivializing social justice protests, triggered global outrage and forced the ad to be pulled. Pulling the ad didn't stop the pain. It hurt both her personal credibility and the Pepsi brand. Ari, an Instagram influencer with over 2.6 million followers, couldn't sell 36 t-shirts. So it's also an idea of when you're looking at your personal branding, you need to understand what it means to have followers, and does that even equal influence? If the audience isn't genuinely engaged in your personal brand, maybe you don't have the influence that your personal brand can push onto your company brand. And this is something you need to develop. Then there's Rachel Hollis, who built a loyal following as a motivational speaker, only to see her brand collapse under accusations of being tone deaf and disconnected from the realities of her audience. This again comes back to, with your personal brand, you're able to be flexible and pivot, yet you're not getting and receiving and reviewing the necessary feedback to ensure that you're getting the pivot done correctly. Ellen DeGeneres, once hailed as the queen of kindness, right? Saw her brand severely tarnished after reports of toxic workplace culture surfaced. And just like that, not only was her personal brand gone, but her TV show, which is her business brand, gone as well. That type of severe fallout doesn't happen all the time, but this is the risk. Look at Paula Deen. She was everyone's Southern grandma. But now, because of her past racist comments, it ended her career and endorsements overnight. So it's a big risk when you're doing personal branding. But if you have a clear message and you are truly authentic in what you're doing, you're going to get real engagement. You're going to have real influence over your followers, and your followers are going to be some of the most loyal to your brand and cause. But you, as the owner of your personal brand, need to have an unwavering awareness of your audience. You need to be consistent, and you can't fake expertise or overpromise or assume your people will just stay loyal. You need to do everything that you can to get their feedback and be better and get better, because your audience's trust is your currency. Now, with business branding, it's a little bit different. The corporate world offers equally powerful lessons. Some companies have nailed branding so effectively that they've become cultural icons. As we said before, Apple is a great example. Nike as well. It's built one of the most emotionally charged brands in history, blending performance with inspiration. Campaigns like Just Do It, they circumvent the globe, and they're very simple. Brands like Airbnb transform the way we look at accommodation. Now we say, I'm going to Airbnb something, or I'm going to go to an Airbnb, which would have been a hotel or motel. But they focused on a feeling of belonging anywhere in the world and an experience anywhere in the world, and they didn't focus on accommodation. Their brand was experience. But as we said before, even giants can crumble. We can talk about Pepsi. We had the Kendall Jenner fiasco, but on top of that, they've had several misgivings throughout the years where they've had to pivot their brand strategy to now be with food. If you go to a lot of the food places, of course, besides McDonald's, you're going to find Pepsi because they realized that what they were doing with their branding on trying to be competitive with Coke after the mid 90s, the few commercials that were great, and some of you might remember where there was a little boy, he was buying the Coke, also that he could get tall enough to buy the Pepsi. That was the last of the golden age of Pepsi marketing. And Pepsi's brand took a big hit after that. And Coke, they made one of the most biggest blunders in branding history. They thought their environment wanted new Coke. And in 85, they introduced new Coke, and they didn't understand the emotional connection that people had. Now, maybe new Coke tasted better in a blind taste test, but we're not living in a blind taste test. We're living in the reality, and their customers' backlash made them reverse course in less than a week. Now, Coca-Cola's blunder is public, and it had to do with an emotional connection. But classic Coke is something that the customers want. Yahoo's brand identity, I was just listening to a podcast this morning with Trevor Noah, and it was like Yahoo became so muddled under Marissa Meyer's leadership that it couldn't retain its loyal users, and it lost all dominance. It used to be $1 billion company, and now it's worth hundreds of millions. Why? They forgot who they were, and they kept expanding, kept going different directions, and they lost their brand identity. And a smaller company came and scooped them up, and I believe Verizon bought them at a ridiculous evaluation, and from that point, it was downhill. Blockbuster had the same problem, right? Blockbuster's brand was Rent It. Well, as times change, your brand could have changed. When the model of Netflix emerged, they should have changed their branding and their business model. Same thing happened to Kodak. Kodak wanted to be the guy that developed everyone's pictures. We're in the film business. No, you're in the photo business. And the best way to take a photo isn't always film. And they had technology for digital filmmaking well before some of the competition. But their inability to rebrand from the film people to a photo experience, the capture of a moment, destroyed them. JCPenney, I don't know about you. I've bought a few suits back in my day from JCPenney. But they lost their core customers for one reason. They started removing discounts and sales, which is a major part of their brand promise. And because of that, and they didn't give a new brand identity that their customers could identify with, they couldn't move forward. Toys R Us is another one. How is it that with e-commerce and everything going on, that a store that was basically tailored to one of the most common expenses of a family, their children and their children's happiness, failed in the 2020, in the 20th century. But it was an inability to rebrand themselves, to make themselves into the company that their customers really wanted at that time. And because of that, their operational adaptation and their flexibility and their ability to pivot was basically neutered. You got to know your market. You need to constantly be communicating with your customer and looking at your customers' demographics and what they're looking at for their future. Never assume their loyalty is guaranteed, and never assume that their loyalty is forever. You need to consistently prove to your customers and your clients and your colleagues that you are loyal, that you are a guarantee. And this consistency will align with your audience and will become one of the pillars of your successful business branding, because they will expect what was your vision and your brand every time, all the time, across sectors. In Clinical Group, we made our start in pharmaceuticals. I take that level of care and expertise into whatever business we're doing, whether it's, in Europe, local taxi businesses or our mechanic shops, or we're talking about our business branding or ghostwriting in the global stage. We know that we are looking at compliance and clarity and communication as our pillars. We want to make sure that our clients know that every time, and we keep doing that. Now, me as a personal brand, I'm much more brash. I am the, Indian-born American who grew up and got to live around the world and share my experience and expand like this. It's a different mindset. So what does that leave us? Most leaders today must balance both personal and business branding simultaneously. Lead with business branding when your business is heavily tied to your individual expertise, vision, or persona. Solopreneurs, consultants, coaches, creatives, they naturally thrive there. And this is something that if you're a company and you as the leader are not good at this is when you need to bring somebody in, because they'll be able to get your story out there, your values and your choice, and this can make you a magnet for your audience. Think of Neil Patel, whose personal blog and tutorials made him a top name in digital marketing. And like we said, Gary Vee, VaynerMedia was something that he made with his personal brand. On the other hand, you can lead your business branding when you are building something designed to scale beyond yourself. Startups, enterprise, legacy companies required identity outside of the independent of the founders. Airbnb, Apple, Amazon. This is why we have Clinical Group. I could have always called it Rex Alexander Consultancy, but I knew I wanted to build something bigger. I wanted to build a company that was going to be here beyond me. Now, in my opinion, hybrid models are usually where most people land, because we both have public fronts for both our personal identities and our corporate identities. Because the founder can bring that human authenticity. No matter how big the company gets and builds, and it, whether it becomes a global powerhouse or it's a local chain, the founder or the face makes them relatable, and the company is the factory. Richard Branson, like I said before, his branding of Virgin was exciting. He's got his islands, he's skiing, it made it so that when you thought of Virgin, the brand had some of his charisma. As I said before, Clinical Group, we've been conscientious of this. Our company brand focuses on this: excellence, client outcomes, patient and regulatory compliance. At the same time, our leadership have actively built different brands for their own personal identities. And bringing these different brands also lends credibility to our company, because we know that our senior staff are thought leaders and have a value that is independent of one another, that we can look at each other and gain strength from one another and gain expertise from one another and gain outside opinions that might be outside of what we understood. And this helps keep building our corporate brand. And like I said, when it's a website proposal or something like this, the communication materials need to reflect both. You don't want, when you're building the brands, for them not to be intertwined well. In the strength of your business and in the trust of your individual experts, this branding can show both. And this can be done from both sides. Your personal brand should always be pushing your corporate, and your corporate brand can find ways to push your personal brand. And this alignment between your personal values and the business's values is something that often founders have and can diverge in the future. And this often leads to that inauthenticity that people see. When you see what Facebook was originally started for, when it was talked about from, a bedroom in a college dorm to what it is now, the authenticity is gone. You don't believe the founder anymore. So be able to be flexible and pivot, alternate content to spotlight both. Share your expertise as the founder or leader, but also share the consistency of your company as a team, as a brand. Those synergies will double the trust with your audience, and it can also double the opportunity. Now, an emotional connection is the cornerstone of any brand's lasting success. Whether you're established or whether you're establishing a personal brand or a business brand, creating that emotional bond is what transforms a customer from a one-time buyer into a passionate advocate. With personal branding, it starts with authenticity, like we said before. Oprah Winfrey's life's trials and triumphs were lessons that resonated with millions around the world. Her willingness to speak openly about her journey built unmatched trust. We talk about this as if we don't know that honesty connects people with other people. But honesty also connects people so that they can see that you feel and understand them. Business brands may not have a face, but they create emotional resonance in different ways. Amazon, for example, built trust through unrelenting commitment to convenience, reliability, and customer service. Nike, like we said earlier, just doesn't sell shoes. It sells empowerment, distilled in that iconic slogan of "Just Do It." Patagonia has earned deep loyalty by living its values, whether donating to environmental causes or making its supply chain more transparent. The thread that runs through both personal and business brands is consistency. People remember how you made them feel. Stay consistent, stay true to the message. You built the brand that people can trust, and if you believe in yourself, they can believe in you. Now, let's talk about some mistakes and how to avoid them. Well-intentioned brands sometimes miss the obvious. The first and most common mistake is the inconsistency. When too many brand voices, colors, logos, tones keep changing, and you're rebranding every 6 months, and your signature style is changing, your customer doesn't know who you are. Confusion is the enemy of trust. Brands like Gap learned this the hard way. When their sudden and poorly received logo design caused such backlash that they had to revert. The second pitfall can happen with oversharing or undersharing. Oversharing personal details exposes you. It makes you feel more relatable at first, but can quickly backfire and diminish your professional capacity because you've now maybe brought too much of your personal side in. On the other side, failing to show zero personal side means that your audience will find you cold, uninterested. You're not relatable. You're not one of them. And it's not about being the common man or anything like this. It's just being human with one another. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect at a human level, whether it's to do business, whether it's to enjoy ourselves. It is that humanity in all of us that drives this business. Then there's the copying others. Okay? Drawing inspiration is one thing. Outright copying is another. It's a brand killer. Once you start to notice that your brand is copying others and it doesn't have its own unique voice, you'll notice that customers won't know and won't want to engage with your brand. They'll go to the original. And like we talked about before, ignoring customer feedback. Had companies like JCPenney or Toys R Us, or even something as simple as Pepsi did a little bit more testing on that commercial before it was released, they wouldn't have had to pay so dearly for ignoring customer preferences during their experiments. Always listen to the community that supports you and the community that you want to support you. And finally, never neglect reputation management. Think of Uber's PR nightmare or the controversy surrounding Ellen DeGeneres. Both brands suffered from poor handling of those situations, ending the trust that they had built for years. And that trust to regain is, I'm not going to say that it's harder than the original, but it does lend more difficulty because to open that door again is hard. But once you open that door, if you truly are as authentic as you were before, it should have been good. And nothing establishes a long-term customer and a long-term loyal customer faster than a compelling story backed by consistent action. People want to know why you do what you do, not just what you sell. Start with why, as Simon says. That framework gives your customer your motivations. For personal brands, it means telling your audience what drives you, talks about your failures, setbacks, along with your victories. The honesty is the magnet. Elon Musk has been a master of this, offering raw, unpolished updates about the challenges at Tesla and SpaceX. Sometimes as a shareholder, you wake up and see a tweet and you don't want to log into your Robinhood account. Love him or hate him, that level of trust has people committed. That's why no matter how many times the bears have come for him and his stock shares, they haven't won yet. For business brands, the story is told through action. Patagonia isn't just talking about sustainability, they're living it by donating profits and suing the government to protect public lands. Hydro Flask consistently shows up in the outdoor lifestyle space with meaningful content and partnerships that reflect its customer passions. Your brand needs to associate itself with other brands that flow together. You know, at Clinico, our story is deeply tied to patient safety. It's about keeping people safe and keeping people happy. Our consultants aren't just experts, they're advocates for a better standard, for safer systems. They're looking at how do we approach healthcare and healthcare safety holistically. Yes, we have specific tasks because this is what we do, but every day we're looking at what can clinical group do to contribute to the future being better. And this unwavering mission helps our business communications to our clients because we're building a relationship based on that ideology. A compelling story, like I said, paired with a consistent action, will create a powerful loop of trust, and those customers will believe your promise and that your brand is a proven commitment to this promise. Now, the natural question we often get asked is, how do you balance personal and business branding? First, define what role each brand is going to play. Your personal brand is going to give your business human face and emotional accessibility, but your business brand can give structure and credibility with your personal expertise. You want to avoid confusing the two. Your personal opinion should be separated from company statements. This is something that can get you in big trouble. While still ensuring both align with your values, the best approach is to blend both worlds intentionally, knowingly, so that you're doing it effectively. An effective strategy is alternating the type of content you share. You can offer behind-the-scenes insights, personal lessons, thought leadership on your personal channels, while your business channels focus on client success stories, product announcements, industry insights. Cross-promotion is powerful. You can use your personal brand to lift your business and vice versa. And this way, when you're sharing information, you might even have a little bit of a non-overlap between the two types of audiences. Somebody that's into your personal brand might not have discovered your business brand and vice versa. At the core, like I said, it's authenticity. Customers can spot a manufactured persona. You know, some of you guys can probably tell when I'm reading from the script or when I'm going off the flow because you have a sense inside of you of what's real. So I'm trying to be as genuine as possible. Say what you mean, not what you say. Another strategy that is often underutilized is empowering your team to act as ambassadors for your brand. If you hired them with the same vision as you, let them go forth and propagate that vision. When employees share content and insights under the shared set of brand values, your reach is going to multiply exponentially. Your employees' network is bigger than yours. When done right, both brands will not compete with each other. They will complement and amplify one another, creating a synergy that builds and generates trust, and ultimately, what do we want? Drive growth. If you're not actively engaged with your clients and your community, you're going to have a hard time with this, and without a brand, you can't develop it. You know, I'm so glad that you guys were able to join me today. It's great. I hope you guys are able to engage more with the Entrepreneurs Element group. Our community is building. We're going strong. We want our members to get more involved. If you're interested in giving a live session on one of our Monday sessions, get in contact with me, Brian, or the admin Entrepreneurs Element, and we'll get you a topic and get you set up. We love the sharing of knowledge. We love that our members want to give each other the best experiences and strategies to help us survive and thrive. Thank you for joining me today. Let's keep building something extraordinary. And tomorrow we'll have a live session. Me and Brian are still deciding the topic. We'll probably announce it tomorrow morning. But I hope to see you there as well. Have a great day, everybody.